Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my new Thor Love and Thunder trailer video. Marvel has a bunch of Easter eggs, and there were a bunch of questions that you had on my trailer video yesterday, so I'll try to answer those during this, especially the biggest ones. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of Thor footage that we're going to be getting pretty soon because Doctor Strange 2 is about to come out in theaters. For those of you asking about the timeline, where's Doctor Strange when this is all happening? The events of Doctor Strange 2 are supposed to take place around the time that this is happening. There's an Easter egg for what's happening in Thor Love and Thunder during Spider-Man No Way Home. At the beginning of the movie, one of J. Jonah Jameson's broadcasts is talking on the ticker about strife happening in New Asgard, and that's what you're seeing during the trailer. So that's why Doctor Strange just doesn't pop over and help out with Gorr the God Butcher, because he's dealing with all these crazy multiverse level problems when the events of Thor Love and Thunder are taking place. But answering some of the biggest questions that I saw on my trailer video yesterday, a lot of you were asking about what is going on with Thor's two blue eyes during the trailer, because technically the last we saw him during Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, one of the eyes was cybernetic and it was brown, so they were mismatched eyes. If you notice, he does have the scar over one of his eyes. That's where he lost the eye. That's where the cybernetic one should be. The whole thing with him having two blue eyes during this and the fact that they look the same is you have to remember that it's a cybernetic eye. They can make it look like whatever they want it to look like. So he probably just decided that he wanted two blue eyes. Some of the producers and the people that worked on the film have also confirmed some of the details from the trailer that we were confused about yesterday too, like what's going on when they go to Mount Olympus. There's a big statue of Zeus in the background with his lightning bolt. You see tiny little figure of Thor here talking to their delegation. There are actually two red capes, so that means that by the time they go there, he's already seen Jane Foster Thor, she's already gotten the hammer, and they've already figured out what's going on with Gorr, and they're trying to pursue him. A lot of you have also asked, because Thor's wearing so many different new versions of costumes during the trailer, there are like 3 or 4 different new costumes for him. When he's wearing the construction worker Ravager's uniform that's designed on the Eric Masterson Thunderstrike costume, a lot of you are asking, is the belt, because it's a new belt buckle, new belt, pretty much all new clothes. All of them are designed to be big classic Easter eggs for the original Thor comics. Does that mean that the belt that he's wearing is the actual belt from Spider-Man Homecoming that Happy mentioned, his special belt that's meant to double his strength that he just left over at the Avengers base? It's always possible that that is the special belt, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just custom clothing that he had made when he was with the Ravagers. Like, this is all clothing that Peter Quill would have had access to as well. When he had some of this made, he probably just had some of it made custom so that it had Asgardian designs and Easter eggs built into it. Like when he's doing the workout montage, losing all that weight, and you see him wearing the custom Avengers hat, it's the Avengers logo from the original Avengers comics, and it's the same colors too. Like someone literally copy-pasted the logo and the design, the colors, from that original comic book cover. Except he asked them to make it custom to say Strongest Avenger, just to help pump himself up in a big callback to Thor Ragnarok, when Iron Man left that joke for him to access the Quinjets. This will also get into the whole idea of where they're taking Thor in the MCU, because now we have a second version of Thor with Jane Foster. What does this mean for the future of Chris Hemsworth's Thor and the future of the Avengers movies, Marvel Phase 5, whatever going forward?
I need to figure out exactly who I am.
This gets into more Rune King Thor and more of his cosmic responsibility, becoming more of a true god of the MCU, just like Odin became a god of the MCU. This ties into what we're learning about on Moon Knight episodes right now too, with the legit gods of the MCU and how they're different from just the really powerful cosmic beings of the MCU. Best example of that are the Celestials. Like Star-Lord, for example, has half Celestial DNA because of Ego the Living Planet. He's kind of like a rogue Celestial. But the Celestials, as they explain, are not actual legit gods. They're just really, really powerful cosmic beings. The whole idea with Odin is that he was not born a god in the MCU. He was just born a really powerful cosmic being as part of his race. Tying things back to real-life Norse mythology, the whole idea with Odin becoming a god, attaining the Odin Force, is about him going through all these trials that they spell out in classic Norse mythology, and while that was happening, he gained the true faith of his followers, and that sort of minted him a legit god in the MCU. So all that extra power came later. He wasn't born with all that power. But once he did become a legit god in the MCU, like all legit MCU gods, he was able to biologically have children and pass that god tier power onto his children, Hela and Thor. It's the same for all the other pantheons of gods around the MCU. Khonshu on Moon Knight, for example, is the biological sister of Bast, the Panther goddess, and they're meant to be the children of Atum, the leader of their Egyptian pantheon, who is sort of like their version of Ra, the sun god. But one of the big themes of the trailer is Thor shirking his responsibilities, kind of going back to ground with the World Tree, or the version of the World Tree. This is kind of what this is meant to inspire, thinking about his life and what he needs to be doing with himself, what he should be doing. As people who've read the comics, we obviously know he has a greater cosmic responsibility, like there are way bigger threats out there that he should be dealing with using all this cosmic power for. We're just witnessing him come to that realization through the course of the movie, and Gorr the God Butcher is going to be the catalyst that causes him to do that. Like, the way that gods should be helping their subjects, because the whole thing with Gorr the God Butcher is that he's going around slaughtering all the gods of the MCU because he says that they're selfish, and he's not wrong.
Let me remind you, should we part, you may not like my next candidate, near and dear as she is to you.
You've seen the way that Khonshu acts during the Moon Knight series. He's very capricious. He doesn't really care about human life that much, even though he wants justice. He doesn't really care about the well-being of his subjects. It's the same for most of the other gods of the MCU, and that's why Gorr going around killing all of them actually isn't that bad of a thing. They'll get into this during the Moon Knight series too. When you kill a god, it's possible for their essence to survive. Like when Odin died during Thor Ragnarok, you see the Odin Force, his essence sort of transferred itself to their version of Valhalla, which for Asgardians in the MCU is kind of like an alternate dimension. So just because their earthly body dies doesn't mean that their essence dies too. But the thing with Gorr the God Butcher is that he uses the Necro Sword to be able to perma-kill MCU gods, and that's why they're really afraid of him. Like, he'd want to go after all the other gods that are part of Khonshu's pantheon, so even though they're in the Overvoid, this pocket dimension hiding out from the rest of the third dimension of the MCU where most of our time is spent, Gorr would still be able to use his power through the Necro Sword and the other cosmic power he attains along the way to go kill them in this alternate dimension. As he continues to kill more and more people, he finds new and new cosmic power to find ways to get the other gods that are even more powerful. That's why during the Gorr storyline in the comics, there were actually multiple versions of Thor from his own timeline that had to team up to defeat Gorr. There were 3 different versions. There was like a young version of Thor from really early in his timeline, there was the present-day version of Thor who wielded his axe, and then there was the old man Thor version after he became King Thor for a long time and looked more like Odin. He'd lost an eye, he'd lost his arm and replaced it with the arm of the Destroyer, so anytime you see this is like old man Thor. During Marvel Phase 4, Multiverse is a big concept. We're seeing variants of a bunch of these big characters. It's just that during Thor Love and Thunder, they're combining it with the Mighty Thor arc, so instead of doing multiple Thors from across his own timeline, they're doing multiple Thors using the Jane Foster version of Thor. The whole idea being that Gorr is too powerful for one version of Thor as he is as you see him. But the Easter egg that you probably noticed is that the first time that he learns about Jane Foster Thor, he's wearing the old version of the costume, but in the footage where he's using Stormbreaker and the Bifrost to travel in the goat boat, and when he's high-fiving Korg, he's wearing the new Rune King Thor looking version of the costume that's blue and gold. So I talked about how Odin became a god in the MCU, like he went through all these trials that are based on classic Norse mythology. Thor winds up doing the same thing. He decides, is this power enough for me or do I need more? So they have a version of what you saw at the end of Thor Ragnarok, except in the comics it was the presence of the Odin Force who sort of presented itself in the form of this small child and basically told Thor how to complete all these trials and take it way further than Odin took it, but in doing so attain even more power than Odin ever obtained. And that's how Thor became Rune King Thor, the most powerful version of Thor, like crazy powerful. In fact, after this in the comics, the reason why you don't see Rune King Thor pop up so much is because he was so powerful. It was kind of hard for the writers to fit him into stories, so they had to find a way to depower him. I think they have something similar planned for Chris Hemsworth Thor in the future of the MCU, a way to explain how he's not around for Earth-based problems all the time, but he's still around just in general. They'll give him a huge Rune King Thor style power up, but as part of that big power up, he'll realize he has a greater cosmic responsibility and just spend most of his time traveling around the universe solving really big problems. And what they'll do for a lot of these smaller Earth-based problems is they'll use the Jane Foster version of Thor in the future. A lot of you also asked about the Guardians of the Galaxy, where's Rocket, what's going on with their characters now in the timeline, because we have Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that they're finishing up right now. There is a Guardians holiday special that's going to be airing this December. It'll be like a Christmas special one-off, but it'll be set up for Guardians 3, so it will be required watching. It'll be live action, but it'll be based on the classic Star Wars holiday special. Right now, they have not encountered Adam Warlock yet, so it's not like he's hidden in any of this footage anywhere. Remember, he's basically following his original comic story. The Sovereign are creating him to destroy the Guardians, but he'll pull a vision during the course of that movie where he comes to his incredible cosmic senses that the Guardians are not as evil as he was told, and he winds up siding with them. You notice that Groot is still teenage Groot size. They're probably going to save him growing to Alpha Groot size, like full adult Groot for Guardians 3. It feels like he would say something that big for that movie. There is another comic book Easter egg that I didn't point out in my video too. When Thor is sort of narrating about his life, like he's thinking to himself about what he's going to be doing in the future and he's with Korg, they're standing on the mountaintop in that frozen wasteland with a giant rat creature that's frozen over in ice. That's taken directly out of the Gorr the God Butcher storyline. One of the funny things they don't show you in the trailer is because all this tourism now is happening inside New Asgard, like Valkyrie wants the town to be able to earn money. You see this kind of United Nations situation going on with all these other world leaders meeting with her inside the halls of New Asgard. As part of all this, they also have another fake play like the one that Loki engineered during Thor Ragnarok, except this fake play is based on the events of Thor Ragnarok because the idea is that all the fake plays play on the events of the previous movie, kind of making fun of it. Matt Damon came back to play fake Loki, Luke Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth's real-life brother came back to play the fake version of Thor, and they have Melissa McCarthy playing a fake version of Hela to sort of replay the events of Odin's death and the breaking of Mjolnir. That's also probably there to sort of set up Jane Foster getting the hammer too, like you see a fake funny version of the hammer being broken, but then it reforms for actual Jane Foster. But if there are any other big questions that I didn't address during this video or Easter eggs that you noticed that I didn't talk about in my last couple of videos, just post them in the comments below. I'll do more Thor videos as we learn more connections with Moon Knight and what's going on with the legit gods of the MCU. My full Moon Knight episode 4 video will post next. It's going to be crazy, so make sure you enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everyone click here for my other really big Thor Love and Thunder trailer video, and click here for my Moon Knight episode 4 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.